Professor Dr. Pascal Bijol. He is the head of Genetic Cancer Department, Montpellier, France, and his title of presentation will be Prevention of Familial Breast Cancer.
Thank you very much. Before to start this presentation, I would like to thank the organizing committee and Dr. El Ghazali especially for their kind invitation to this wonderful meeting. I would also like to thank a dear colleague in this room that provided me this nice suit because my baggage are still in Paris at this time. Thank you very much. Well, this is a plan. We will start talking about risk, then move to surgical prevention, then medical prevention. About risk, breast cancer is still the leading cause of cancer in female in the world. So any interventions that could reduce the number of breast cancer would be an appropriate strategy to reduce morbidity, mortality, or treatment costs. What is challenging is to identify a subpopulation with a high risk, because in this subgroup, the prevention will be optimal, the benefit will be optimal. We all know about these risk factors, among with age, family history, reproductive factors, breast density, pre-invasive lesions, or lifestyle. But one thing we should take into account is the magnitude of each risk. And these risks are now, can be quantified. You can see here that the familial risks are the most higher risks that are known among with BRCA1 and 2, but also familial risk. There is tools to assess this risk. Many of them are some models that could be available online and that could be useful to assess the familial risk. Something annoying dealing with cancer prevention and breast cancer prevention is that the major endpoint, cancer avoided, are not visible. When you are dealing with cardiovascular prevention, you are lowering cholesterol or hypertension. You can see that. You know, that's the endpoint you can see. But cancer avoided, you cannot see it. But on the other hand, you can see side effects. So there is something challenging about prevention in cancer. Familial breast cancer represents about 10 to 15% of breast cancer. BRCA1 and 2 are just a part of it. There is other genes accounting for less than 1% of familial breast cancer, so really a small part of it. This is a paper that we recently published in BRCRT, not the figures that you see here, but this is the data from the French NCI over a decade. And among 50,000 tests, about 40% are positive for BRCA1 and 2 mutation. So this is pretty similar to the data that show Baru Hanoun before. Among a population with a family history, I mean, the rate of carrier is about 15%. So is this genes or is this environment that cause this familial cancer? It may be both. Here you have two homozygote twins that are sharing their genetic, all their genes, 100% are the same, they have also shared their lifestyle. They have been living together all their life, not married, no child, probably eating the same thing, and they present concomitantly with a bilateral cancer with a particular aggressive phenotype. And I just want to mention that because this is an ongoing study comparing genotype and phenotype over the two edges of the Mediterranean Sea. So we have patients in France, in young women. We have patients in France and in some country of North Africa. And we want to compare phenotype, family history, genotype, and reproductive factors. So this study is still open, and Egyptian investigator and patients or other North African countries are still welcome. This is done, advertisement. Let's go and switch to prevention. The risk reduction strategies include lifestyle modifications, prophylactic surgery, and chemoprevention. Lifestyle modification include a lot of possible action of benefit, but unfortunately, studies exploring whether this modification can really reduce breast cancer risk are inconsistent, especially in familial risk. So I don't think at present time prevention can be based on this kind of advice to our family with risk. Prophylactic mastectomy is an option for women with high risk of developing breast cancer, including BRCA1 and 2 women, very strong family history, and sometimes proliferative breast lesions. This procedure has been reported to decrease the risk of breast cancer by about 90%. But extensive counseling is required because the physical and psychological aspect, including anxiety, depression, impaired body image, and actually impaired body. We will discuss about that in the session on the afternoon. What is interesting, if you look at the worldwide uptake of bilateral mastectomy, there is a huge range of this uptake according to the country. France is about 10% still now, but some countries have a higher or lower rate of mastectomy. What is now constant in all countries is a rising in the rate of mastectomy. It started in the US. It was reported by Tuttle in 2010. But we have the same data in France from a cohort, a prospective cohort, following more than 1,500 women with BRCA1 and 2 mutation, and the rate of bilateral mastectomy is increasing. We've got that also recently from England with some data, I mean, with extremely high effect of probably Angelina Jolie, what they call Angelina effect, in the rising of mastectomy and testing. Why is that? Why more mastectomy at this time? Better information of patients and medical doctor, increase BRCA testing, improve mastectomy and reconstruction techniques over the time, increased use of MRI and more generally screening that make pressure on women about the risk. And one point I would like to emphasize is overestimation of risk. I'm not talking about the risk of developing a cancer. That have been done early. I'm talking about the risk of dying of a breast cancer. On this slide, this is actually two works by Kurian. In yellow, you have the probability to die from a breast cancer, and in red, of an ovarian cancer. This is a general population. As you can see, 100% of the women would die. This is bad news. But ovarian cancer and breast cancer account for a small part. Now let's move to BRCA1 and 2 carrier. The risk of dying from an ovarian cancer is not about 20% if you do nothing, and about 20% if you do nothing for breast. If you are doing oophorectomy at the age of 40 and screening, you decrease the mortality of 21%. Now, what about mastectomy? If you are performing a mastectomy at the age of 40, you are decreasing the risk of dying of a breast cancer by 3.5%. And I think this information must be bring to the reflection of women, thinking about this treatment. Okay, now we will discuss maybe later on prophylactic surgery this afternoon. But let's switch to medical prevention. As you all know, SERMs, tamoxifen and raloxifene, has been extensively studied in the field of breast cancer prevention. We have numerous phase 3 trials that have been showing clearly a reduction in breast cancer incidence. However, the uptake is not very high. Tamoxifen and raloxifene have the approval for prevention in the US, but the uptake is not so high, mainly because there is the possibility of serious adverse effects, thromboembolic and endometrial cancer. In the adjuvant setting, the treatment with aromatase inhibitors is associated with a superior efficacy in terms of contralateral protection. So, some three trials have been designed to focus on the question of prevention in high-risk patients using aromatase inhibitors. 2 of these trials have been published now. So let's look at the results. The first one, published in the New England Journal of Medicine in 2011, was the MEP3 trial. This trial was designed as a randomized double-blind study with exemestane versus placebo for 5 years. The risk was based on the calculation of high risk with the Gale model. This is the result. The efficacy of exemestane compared to placebo was just 2/3 of reduction, 65% of reduction in women receiving exemestane versus placebo. I will not detail the side effect except this one for 2 reasons. The first one is that the median follow-up of this study is only 3 years. So it's kind of short for adverse effect in terms of bone.